Eli Mercer had never worn a suit that cost more than his car. Now, he was standing in front of a giant glass mirror aboard the Unity Accord. The most expensive spaceship ever built, fixing the collar of his shimmering black diplomatic uniform. He felt like a fraud. Just a year ago, he was a language teacher on Earth, sipping cheap coffee and grading essays. Thanks to his talent with alien languages and a weird chain of political favors. He was Earth's first junior diplomat to the Galactic Concordia Council of over 300 advanced civilizations. His mission today? Attend a royal banquet hosted by the Zyari Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful alien empires in the galaxy. Simple enough. Eat. Smile. Don't cause a war. As the elevator doors opened to the grand hall, Eli almost lost his breath. The hall was massive, shining silver walls curved around a floating garden of glowing trees. With stars glittering beyond the transparent ceiling, music filled the air, soft and strange. Alien nobles in colorful robes floated or glided across the floor, chatting in dozens of languages, and at the center, sitting on a crystalline throne, was Princess Ilari Zaira. She was tall and elegant, with skin like polished amethyst and long silver hair braided with jewels. Her eyes shimmered with layers of violet and gold. She wore armor that looked like art, and a crown that looked like it might control planets. Eli gulped. A butler approached and whispered, "You are seated next to the princess. Please don't touch the food until she does." Great, no pressure. As Eli sat down, he felt like every eye was on him. The chair adjusted itself to his shape. A tray of floating appetizers hovered in front of him. The princess turned to him and gave a polite nod. He nodded back. Good evening, Your Radiance." She blinked. "You may call me Zara." Her voice was calm, musical, and just a little amused. "Okay, Zaira," Eli said, trying to sound confident. "I'm Eli Mercer, junior diplomat from Earth." What? Shit. The chaotic seed world. I read your profile. Eli had no idea what that meant, but he smiled anyway. They talked for a few minutes, mostly small talk. She asked about Earth's gravity, why humans wore neckties, and if Earth's oceans were still made of raw hydrogen compounds. Eli responded as politely as he could, though half the time he had no clue if she was being serious or teasing him. Then came the toast. The lights dimmed. A server floated to Eli and offered him a tall, curved glass filled with blue liquid. Everyone stood. Zara stood. Eli stood. The server handed him a golden leaf with glowing words printed on it. "Read this aloud," the server said, as part of the Zyari bonding ritual. Bonding ritual? "A diplomatic formality," the server assured him. "Read it." Eli looked at the glowing alien script. Could read most of its Yari, was one of the languages he'd studied. He cleared his throat. "2 stars that burn. To peace between hearts. To the unity of our spirits. May this alliance be sealed in truth and honor." He raised his glass. The hall went silent. Zaira stared at him. Her glowing eyes widened slightly. Then she stepped forward and placed her hand gently on his chest. "Accepted," she said softly, her voice almost emotional. And then the hall exploded in applause. Trumpets played. Flower petals rained from the ceiling. A glowing symbol lit up above them in the air, forming 2 interlocking rings. Nobles began cheering in their languages, clapping, dancing. Eli blinked. "What? What just happened?" "You proposed to her," said a voice behind him. He turned to see the Concord's lead translator. He's looking pale. "That was not just a toast. It was a marriage proposal. You used the formal vow of union joining." "I what?" "I was told it was a diplomatic phrase." "Yeah," the translator said grimly. "It is for joining empires through marriage." Eli looked back at Zara. She was still smiling. Later that evening, Eli stood alone in one of the observation decks, staring out at the stars and trying not to panic. He'd accidentally proposed to an alien princess who said yes. There was no way this wouldn't be a disaster. Earth barely had a seat at the Galactic Concord table. If this caused an incident, the doors slid open. Zaira stepped. Inside, quietly. I didn't mean to, Eli said immediately. I swear I thought it was just a diplomatic toast. I know, Zaira said. Walking up beside him, there was silence for a moment as they looked out at the stars. Then why did you say yes? Eli asked. She tilted her head. What? Because you didn't ask for power. You looked uncomfortable. Thanks. That was refreshing, she said with a small smile. Then softer, she added, besides. I've had enough of suitors who only want my throne. You're strange, unpredictable, and full of panic. It's interesting. Eli blinked. That's your type? She stepped closer. No, but maybe it could be. Then she leaned in and whispered very gently, Why don't you date me, human? Eli's heart did a full backflip. She stepped back and gave a rare, almost shy smile. You're not like the others, she said, and my people need change. Might be the mistake we've been waiting for. Eli laughed nervously. That's not very comforting. Don't worry, she said. You'll get used to being uncomfortable. You're in politics now. And she walked away, leaving him speechless. He looked back at the stars, his chest still thumping. Maybe Earth didn't belong in this galaxy yet, but he did. The next morning, Eli Mercer woke up in a room that was bigger than his entire apartment back on Earth. Soft golden light came through the curved windows. Outside, he could see the green clouds and floating spires of Zaira's Prime, the capital world of the Zyari Empire. It looked like something from a dream, huge crystal towers, silver trees and glowing rivers running through the air. He sat up on the strange but soft bed, rubbing his face. I accidentally proposed to a space princess, he whispered to himself, and she said yes. A robotic bird flew into the room and chirped, Your breakfast, ambassador. I'm not an ambassador, Eli muttered, still half asleep. Not officially. The bird said in a polite tone, but after, Last night, the Galactic Concord has updated your title. Eli sighed. Of course they have. When he arrived in the royal palace's main hall, he found Princess Zara already waiting for him. She was dressed in ceremonial armor again, but this time it was more casual. Her silver hair was tied up, and instead of her usual sharp expression, she looked. Tired? You slept well? She asked without looking at him. Kind of. Hard to sleep when you think you started an intergalactic wedding by accident. Zaira finally looked at him and smiled faintly. You did not start a wedding, Eli. You started a movement. He blinked. What kind of movement? She gestured. For him to walk with her through the garden corridors of the palace as they walked. Strange birds flew over their heads, singing in musical tones. Floating fish swam through invisible streams above them. The walls shimmered with moving light. Zaira continued, for centuries. The Zyari Empire has survived by traditional rules, old bloodlines, and arranged bonds with powerful noble houses. But now, everything is fragile. The empire is split between the old houses and new voices. I'm guessing you're one of the new voices? Eli said. She nodded. Yes, and when you made that mistake last night, it gave me an idea. Eli narrowed his eyes. What kind of idea? She stopped and turned to face him fully. I want to keep the engagement. Eli stared at her. You're serious? Zaira? Nodded. Think about it. You're from Earth. Your people are new to the Concord. Unpredictable, neutral. You have no ties to the noble houses, no ambitions for our throne. That makes you perfect. Perfect for what? Symbol, she said. A symbol of peace. Of change. A future where alliances aren't based on blood and war but on choice. Eli let out a nervous laugh. No, I'm just a teacher who studied alien languages, right? I'm not a hero or a soldier or you are human, Zara said, stepping closer. And right now, that's enough. The next few days passed in a whirlwind. Eli became the center of galactic attention. Alien news channels broadcast his image everywhere. Half the galaxy called him the bold human ambassador of love. The other half called him the chaos seed who insulted. The Zyari crown. Meanwhile, Zaira introduced him at official events as her chosen partner, a title that hadn't been used in 1,000 years. Eli had to wear traditional Zyari robes, which felt like wearing 3 curtains tied with jewels. He learned the proper way to bow, how to eat glowing fruit without offending someone. and how to answer reporters without actually answering them. Still, the attention was overwhelming. Not everyone was happy. One evening, Eli met Zara in the palace's strategy room. She was standing over a holographic map of the Empire, red and blue lights flashing across star systems. "What's going on?" Eli asked. "Civil unrest," she replied. "Some of the noble houses think you're a threat. They say I've dishonored the throne by choosing an outsider. There are whispers of rebellion." "That's bad," Eli said. "Worse," she added. "My arranged marriage with House Talvek was meant to stop this, but now that I've refused it and accepted you instead. The peace is breaking." Eli rubbed the back of his neck. "I didn't mean for this to happen,"
"I know," Zaira
said, "but maybe it needed to happen." She looked at him, her eyes glowing gently. "We're going to fight this, Eli, but not with weapons, with something more powerful." "What's more powerful than weapons?" She smiled. "Hope." The next day, Zaira took Eli to the voice chamber, a place where citizens of the Empire could speak directly to the royal family through holographic calls as they entered. Hundreds of voices echoed through the room, questions, cries, hopes, fears. Most of them were about Eli. Why him? He's not one of us. Is this a trick? Zaira stepped forward and activated a platform. A golden light formed around her. "I am Zaira of House Ziari," she announced. "I speak today, not as a princess, but as a citizen. I have chosen this human not because of politics, but because he is honest, curious, and unafraid to admit when he is wrong." Eli blinked. Wait, was that a compliment or an insult? Zaira ignored him and continued. "For too long we have built our empire on fear and formality. But the future does not belong to the powerful alone. It belongs to the brave, those willing to risk discomfort for connection. Eli Mercer is brave in his own way, and I choose him, not because I must, but because I can." The chamber fell. Silent then, one voice said, ... She sounds serious. Another said, "At least he's not Talvek." Another, "He's kinda cute for a soft-skinned biped." Eli coughed. Thanks." That night, as they walked together on one of the floating balconies of the palace, Zaire turned to Eli and said, "You did well today? I mostly just stood there while you made a speech. Sometimes standing beside someone is more powerful than standing alone." Eli looked up at the stars. "This is all still insane, you know?" She nodded. "Yes, but sometimes insanity is the only path to change." He looked at her, really looked at her. Not just the alien beauty or the royalty, but the woman who wanted to shake her empire, who wanted to take a risk with him, a nobody from Earth. "Do you think this could work?" he asked quietly. Zaira smiled. "It's already working." Eli Mercer stood at the edge of a glowing circle in the center of the Chamber of Judgments. The chamber was built into a crystal mountain, its walls carved with ancient symbols. Light from distant suns streamed through the glass ceiling, casting rainbows across the floor. Across from him stood Princess Zara, tall and calm, dressed in formal armor. Behind them, hundreds of alien nobles sat in floating chairs, watching with unreadable expressions. This wasn't a party. It wasn't a ceremony. This was a test. "The trial of unity begins," said the herald, a robotic voice that echoed through the hall. Eli took a deep breath. No pressure. Zaire looked at him and gave a small, rare smile. "Don't faint. I'll try not to throw up either," he whispered back. The trial of unity was an ancient Ziari tradition. Whenever a royal chose a partner outside the noble bloodlines, they had to prove their bond through 3 trials: mind, heart, and action. If they passed, their union would be accepted by law. If they failed, the bond would be rejected. In this case, the galaxy would see it as a humiliation. Earth's place in the Concord could be lost. Zaira's claim to the throne would weaken. Civil war would grow stronger. Everything was at stake. The first trial began. Trial 1. The Minda glowing table appeared between them, covered with alien puzzle pieces that floated in the air. The herald spoke. "Build the star key of Zaire." Together without speaking. Zaira immediately began moving pieces with telepathic gestures. Her mind could control Zairi tech. Eli, unfortunately, had to use his hands. He watched her pattern, studying her rhythm. She started forming a complex shape, part sphere, part cube. Eli noticed one side of it was missing balance. He didn't try to copy her. Instead, he began building the opposite side, like a mirror. When a piece floated away from her, he caught it. When she paused, he matched her pause. Soon, their hands moved like a dance. Her mind and his instinct. Alien grace and human improvisation. The final piece hovered above them. They reached for it together, clicked it into place. The star key glowed gold. Applause rang through the hall. Zira looked at Eli, a little surprised. "You understood my design?" "I didn't need to," Eli said with a shrug. "I just followed your lead and filled in the gaps." Trial 2. The heart the herald spoke again. "You will now face the mirror of truth. If your bond is false, it will break. If it is real, it will reveal." A giant crystal screen rose. From the ground, it shimmered like water. Zara stepped in first, her eyes calm. The crystal pulsed and showed a memory of her as a young girl, crying alone in a dark room while voices outside argued about war, duty, and marriage. Eli stepped in. Next, the crystal shimmered again. It showed him standing in a classroom, trying to explain why humans fought so many wars in history. The students were bored. His voice was tired. And in his eyes was something worse than sadness-loneliness. The mirror faded. True hearts, the herald said. Both seeking connection, both afraid, yet standing side by side. Soft applause followed. The nobles seemed moved. Zira turned to Eli. Her voice was quiet. "You feel alone too?" He gave a small laugh. "Earth is full of people. Still, sometimes." "Yeah." She nodded slowly. "Maybe that's why I trust you." Trial 3. The action, the lights dimmed. A battle simulation surrounded them, holographic enemies, crumbling bridges, and falling debris. "Protect each other," the herald announced. "You must reach the exit alive." Together, suddenly alien beasts appeared, glowing red eyes. Sharp claws, made of hard light but real enough to hurt. Zira pulled a blade from her back. It shimmered with electricity. Eli picked up a glowing staff from the floor. It felt heavy and awkward. They ran. A wall collapsed behind them. Zira leapt over it easily. Kali tripped, rolling across the floor. Beast lunged at him. Zara turned back, slicing the beast in half. "You okay?" she asked. Eli groaned. "Not built for hero stuff." She helped him up. "Then let's get you out of here before you die." As more enemies came, Eli noticed something. There were patterns. The creatures were appearing based on their positions. He started calling directions. Left. That one's fake. What tiff? We move together. They glitch. Zaira followed his cues. With her combat skill and his pattern recognition, they made it to the final room. A gate blocked the way. There was one button, only big enough for one person to press. The herald's voice came again. "One must stay behind. Choose." Zaira turned to Eli. "Go. I can fight my way out later." Eli shook his head. "No. You're the future leader of your people. I'm just a guy who got lucky." He stepped toward the button. Zaira grabbed his wrist. "Don't you dare." They looked at each other, then Eli smiled. "Let's try something crazy." He picked up a piece of debris and wedged it into the button. The gate began to open. Slowly, both of them sprinted through as it shut behind them. The simulation ended. The lights returned. The nobles were silent. Then the herald spoke. Trial passed. This time, the applause shook the chamber. After the trial, Zaira and Eli stood outside the chamber under the pale sky of Zaira's prime. Wind moved through the crystal trees. The stars began to show above. "I can't believe we passed," Eli said. "You surprised me," Zaira admitted. "I surprise myself constantly." She looked at him. "You didn't hesitate to sacrifice yourself. You didn't either." They were quiet for a moment. Then Zaira said, "You saw my childhood in the mirror. That wasn't easy for me." "I know," Eli said softly. "You were alone." I still am. Mostly Eli looked at her. You're not alone now. Zaira stepped closer. You're not just a symbol anymore, Eli Mercer. What am I then? Her voice was softer now. Someone I trust. There was no kiss, no dramatic music. Just two people standing close, under alien stars, no longer strangers. The sky above Zaira's prime was no longer calm. Smoke and fire trailed across the atmosphere. Alarms echoed through the royal palace. Peaceful floating towers now flickered with red warning lights. A rebel fleet had arrived. Princess Zaira stood on the palace balcony, her silver armor glowing under the burning skies. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp-focused. Beside her stood Eli Mercer, holding a communicator and looking worried. They're not just attacking, he said. They're broadcasting live across the galaxy. The whole Concord is watching. They want to humiliate us, Zaira replied. They think if they destroy me, the dream of change dies with me. And me? Eli asked, swallowing. They want you to run. To look like a scared outsider? Eli looked at the smoke trails in the sky. That would honestly be a smart idea. Zaira turned to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. You ran toward danger in the trial. You trusted me. I need you to do that again. Eli let out a breath. You know, back on Earth, I was never brave. She smiled faintly. You are now. The Royal War Chamber. The situation grew worse by the second. Admirals barked orders. Holograms showed red ships entering Ziari space. The noble houses had split. Some were defending the palace. Others had joined the rebels. This is more than rebellion, said General Vyrick, Zaira's most loyal commander. This is an attempted coup. They want the throne, Zaira said. They want you dead, Vera corrected. Zaira nodded. Then we won't wait for them to come. We'll take the fight to them. Eli raised a hand. I have an idea. It's stupid and risky, but it might work. Zaira raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Plan Eli, as the soldiers jokingly called it, was simple but bold. Zaira and Eli would secretly board an old royal scout ship, fly through a secret canyon route, and reach the rebel command cruiser in space. From there, Eli would broadcast a message across the entire Concord, using an ancient Alliance beacon still recognized by every system. If the Concord believed in them, they'd send help. If not, they'd be alone. The launch was fast and quiet. Zaira flew the ship herself. She moved like a dancer's move, precise, fearless. Eli sat beside her, holding tight as the small vessel shot through the mountain tunnels. Explosions rocked the canyon walls. Enemy drones flew above, scanning. Eli gritted his teeth. So just curious, do we have any stealth tech? No, Zaira replied calmly, but I know every shadow in this canyon. They flew low, scraping past ancient stone. The stars grew closer. Then a blast hit the rear of their ship. Engine hit. Eli shouted. Zedra growled. We still fly. Smoke filled the cockpit. Metal creaked. But the ship broke through the cloud line and into orbit. Ahead, the rebel cruiser loomed dark. Spiked and deadly, Zaira whispered. Let's finish this. Inside the cruiser, the rebels weren't ready for them. Zaira moved like lightning, disabling guards with stun strikes. Eli followed, mostly ducking and shouting sorry as he hit buttons randomly. They reached the core chamber, where the Alliance beacon sat. The beacon was old, glowing with blue energy. It could send a message across every Concord world. Eli stepped up to the control pad. Oh, his hands shook. Once I send this, he said, they'll all see me, hear me. Touched his hand. Then let them see who you are. Eli took a deep breath and pressed the broadcast button. The blue light filled the room. A hologram projected his face across thousands of systems. Every planet, every ship, every political council now saw a tired human man, with a cut on his cheek and fear in his eyes. But he stood straight. Hi, I'm Eli Mercer. I'm from Earth. You might know me as the guy who accidentally proposed to a princess. He paused. The galaxy listened. I didn't come here to start a war. I came to learn, to listen, to understand. But I saw something better. I saw A leader, a woman named Zierra, who believes in peace. In real change, not forced by power, but chosen, together. He looked off screen where Zaira stood, watching him quietly. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And now, I believe in her. She doesn't want to rule with fear. She wants to lead with hope. And if that scares some of you, maybe it should. He leaned closer to the camera. You want to know what humans really are? We mess up a lot, but we learn, we adapt, and we protect those who protect us. So if you try to take her down, you're going to have to go through me. The feed ended silence then. The beacon pulsed green dot. The Concorde heard him. Back in Ziari space, the tide began to turn. Ships that had been neutral now turned toward the rebels firing. Messages poured in from dozens of systems. We stand with Zaira. The human speaks truth. Send coordinates. Our fleets are inbound. Zaira smiled. He did it. Back on the rebel cruiser, alarms blared. Enemy soldiers stormed the chamber. Eli grabbed Zaira's hand. Time to run? She nodded. Together, they fought their way back to the hangar, boarded an escape pod, and launched just as the ship exploded behind them, hit by Concorde reinforcements. From their pod, they watched the stars. Zaira turned to him. You didn't just save me. It saved our future. Eli laughed. I don't think I can go back to being a language teacher after this. Good, she said, smiling. I was hoping you'd stay. He blinked. In the palace. My life. The pod landed safely near the capital hours later. People waited cheering, chanting, holding banners with symbols of both Earth and Ziari unity. A crowd parted as Zaire and Eli stepped out hand in hand. General Vyrick saluted. The galaxy saw your heart, princess. And his. Zaire turned to Eli. They believe in us now. Eli smiled. And we just have to figure out how to date without starting another war. Zaira laughed, something she rarely did. And then, in front of 1,000 witnesses, the alien princess leaned close and whispered again, Why don't you date me, human? And Eli's heart once again began dancing. Peace had returned to Xeris Prime. The skies were clear again. The towers rebuilt, and the glowing rivers below, the crystal bridges ran smooth like silver threads. But today, the world was preparing for something more important than war, politics, or even tradition. Today was the day of the royal bonding ceremony, the wedding of Princess Zaira, the human who changed everything. Eli Mercer. Thousands of guests from across the galaxy filled the royal gardens. Blue-leaved trees sparkled with energy lights. Alien children played among glowing orbs that floated like balloons. Representatives from over 60 worlds stood together, former enemies, now allies. At the center of it all, under a tall arch, made of stardust crystal, Zaira stood in her ceremonial robes, a flowing silver and violet gown that shimmered with every movement. Her crown was not just a symbol of power, now it was a symbol of choice, hope, and unity. Eli stood across from her. Wearing a formal Earth-style suit with Zaira-style gold patterns down the sleeves, he looked nervous but happy. His hands trembled. Slightly, but his smile was real. As the High Speaker raised his staff, the crowd grew quiet. Today we witness a bond formed not by politics, but by choice, not by force, but by heart. The High Speaker turned to Zaira. Do you, Princess of Xairis, bond yourself to this human soul, in unity, truth, and hope? Zaira met Eli's eyes. I do. Then the High Speaker turned to Eli. Do you, Eli Mercer of Earth, accept this? Bond not as a gift, but as a path you choose freely, with all the risks it holds. Eli took a breath. I do. And with that, the crystals above the arch lit up, sending a pulse of light into the sky that formed a circle and broken and glowing. The entire crowd cheered. But deep in the crowd, Black Cloak, a shadowed figure, narrowed his eyes. His time would come later that night in the private royal garden. Zaira and Eli sat on a floating platform surrounded by stars. The palace lights flickered like fireflies behind them. Eli sipped a glowing blue drink. So, We're married now. Crazy, right? Zaira smiled softly. Yes, you're now officially the first human royal consort in Zyari history. Eli looked proud, then paused. Do I have to wear a crown too? She laughed. Only if you want to scare children? They sat quietly for a while, enjoying the peace. Then Eli turned serious. Zaira, do you ever think we moved too fast? That the galaxy wasn't ready? No. She looked at him with calm eyes. The galaxy is never ready. That's why someone has to lead first. Eli nodded. I just hope I'm strong enough. You are, she said simply. Then a sharp whistle rang through the garden. Zaira stood quickly. That's a danger signal, Eli frowned. On our wedding night? Moments later, a palace guard rushed forward, breathing hard. Princess, there's been a security breach. Someone broke into the royal vault. Zaira's eyes turned cold. What was taken? The guard hesitated. The scepter of stars. Eli blinked. Is that important? Zaira's voice was quiet but firm. It's more than important. It controls the Celestial Council beacon. Whoever has it can rewrite royal law. Eli stood up, his face pale. So someone just stole the keys to the galaxy? Zaira nodded. We're not finished yet. The thief was no ordinary criminal. He called himself Varan Zara's distant cousin, former noble stripped of title for supporting the rebellion. Now he had stolen the scepter. Hoping to force the council to crown him in Zara's place, his goal wasn't just revenge, it was to erase everything Zara had built, to destroy the human alliance. To return to a world of fear and control, he sent a message to the palace. You have 1 hour. Surrender the throne, or I activate the beacon and strip your claim forever. Oh, there is. Stood in the war room once again, but this time as a queen, not a princess. The generals looked to her as the guards waited for orders. But Zara turned to Eli. What do you think we should do? Eli blinked. Me? You're the heart of this new alliance. I trust your instinct. Eli looked at the star map, where Varan's stolen ship was headed toward a remote satellite. He tapped a few buttons, I think. We don't chase him with ships. Zaira raised an eyebrow. No, we chase him with truth. With something he can't destroy. The next hour was chaos stealth ships launched. Diplomats delayed the council. And Zaira and Eli boarded a small craft heading straight for Voran's location. They arrived at the satellite as Voran prepared the beacon. He wore black ceremonial robes and held the glowing scepter like a weapon. You're too late, he said, smiling. I already began the override. Soon the council will obey me. Zaira stepped forward. You think power is the same as leadership? It is, Varan spat. You gave the galaxy weakness, trust, love, a human. I offer strength. Eli stepped forward now. You call trust a weakness? Varan laughed. You don't belong. Here, Earthboy. Eli stood taller. I do now. He reached into his jacket and held up a glowing cube. The Unity Bikina device created after the trials. Capable of showing shared memories to everyone connected to the Concord, Eli activated. It suddenly holograms filled the sky. Images of the trials, the mirror, the speech, the rescue, the wedding. Millions watching now saw everything. They saw Zaira fight for peace. They saw Zaira fight for peace. They saw Eli stand for truth. And they saw the face of Voran twisted by hate. Holding stolen power, the galaxy judged, and it chose. In a flash of light, Voran's override was cancelled. Concord ships surrounded the satellite. He was taken without a fight, his eyes burning with fury. But the danger was over, and Zaira had won. 1 week later, peace was official. The Concord recognized the new laws of alliance. Earth was granted full status. Eli was offered a position as a Unity ambassador, and the galaxy began to change slowly. But truly, in the royal gardens, Zaira and Eli walked hand in hand. He looked at her and asked, So, what now? She smiled. Now we build. We lead. Together. Eli laughed softly. I still don't know how to act royal. You don't need to. You just need to be real. He paused. You know when you first said, "Why don't you date?" Me, human? I thought you were joking. Zara turned to him, serious, but kind. I never joke about my heart. And Eli, looking into her eyes under alien stars, knew this was only the beginning of a new world, of a love strong enough to unite the stars.